Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on all social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. I gotta elaborate. It's probably just on Twitter. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't have TikTok, Instagram, or any of that jazz. So it's just Twitter. But anyways, we'll get right into it. I got a special guest, Command Sergeant Major. He'll introduce himself in the Army. Tell the listeners where you're from, when you enlisted, professional bio, duty stations, operations, family, so on and so forth.
First off, thanks for having me. I am an active duty sergeant major, but I go by Andy for all intents and purposes because, the internet can be a weird place sometimes. So I go by Andy. I first joined the Army way back when, actually in 2000, somewhere in 2000. I really didn't have I'm real old, man, real old. Uh,
Hey, you
but
look
I'm still
great.
here, so it's got to say something, right?
Yeah.
So I joined the Army back in 2000 as a reservist, really looking for a way to, you know, better my life. I didn't really have a plan coming in out of high school. Joined out of St. Louis, Missouri. I am a proud historian of inner city St. Louis. Probably all the parts where Cardinal baseball and Rams football used to be great. And then I did basic training at Fort Leonard Wood. Joined the Army as an 88 Mike, which you're equivalent to a motor T out there at Fort Leonard Wood, where I did basic training at AIT. Did a couple tours, made Iraq in '03. Just turned 20 in mobilization, turned 21 in Baghdad. And then I came home again. I fell back into the trap of not really having a way, right, to be an adult, for lack of better terms. Went on my second, that was 2003, 2004. Went on my second tour in 2005, 2006, back to Iraq. I did convoy security platforms, that tour. Came back after that one. Still had really bad guidance and no direction in my life. I was just kind of living day to day. So I thought I'd try my hand at active duty. I really liked the active duty side of things. It gave you a schedule, it gave you purpose, it fulfilled your day to day opportunities, and it was a steady paycheck. So I jumped on active duty in '06 and then deployed again back to Iraq in 2007, from 2007 2008. Still just loving life. I was at Fort Cavazos now, which was Fort Hood back in the day. Did a fourth tour in 2010 to 2011. That one, I got to experience the Afghanistan flavor of GWAT, if you will. And yeah, so that was a big change, changing theaters really, because back then Afghanistan and Iraq were really night and day as
Yeah.
far as up tempo, mission requirements, quality of life, safety, mission. It was all just night and day. So I did Afghanistan 2010, 2011, went back to Afghanistan for a short time, a 2-month deployment.
Nice.
We'll get into that later with the topics of mental health. No cool combat stories or anything, but ended up being was a 6-month that turned into a 2-month. And then did an operational deployment to the Republic of Georgia and Macedonia with
Hmm.
Security Force Assistance Brigade out of Fort Carson for a 6-month stint. And now I'm here and I'm getting ready to embark on my 7th deployment
Wow.
to CENTCOM AOR. So yeah, it's been a ride. And
Hell yeah.
the mix of tours was between being single and now, being married. I've been married to my wife for 15 years. We have 2 boys. It's my only marriage. So just, I feel like I should point that out. And
Congratulations.
thank you. It's a
Yeah.
that's a hard thing to come about in, the way the military operates with its
Yeah.
operational tempo. So, but she's sticking by me. We've got 2 boys, and I've got 2 dogs. So currently stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado, enjoying
Huh.
the Ivy Division. And after this CENTCOM deployment, I will be PCSing to Fort Cavazos.
Okay. It's hefty. I'll tell you what, in 2010, I entered active duty. So you are for a old man, you look great there, Sergeant Major. So you're doing well.
I'll
Whatever you're
take
doing,
it.
keep it up.
I'll take it. I'll take it. It's my wife. That's what the mental stressors of the Army, for the enlisted side specifically, I'll speak to. You got to have a good balance that keeps you level headed and make sure you take that time to, take care of yourself. So anything on the look side, all about my wife and making sure that I have that balance when I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take also congratulations to 15 years. I'm at 15
Thank
years now with 5 kids, right? You have four because you have the 2 dogs. It counts.
right.
They
'Cause,
require a lot of attention as well.
you gotta get a new hobby, man. 5 kids, that's a lot, you know? You gotta maybe pick up pickleball or something, I don't know.
This is my hobby. I get to vent the old heads and then learn from their experience. But I'll tell you what, 15 years. Let's hit that before we go to actual operational and the deployments, adversity, resilience. Let's hit family
Okay.
here real quick because I know young service members at from the age of 18 to 24 are newlyweds. Most of them, right? It's kind of like a military thing. It's just a stereotype that exists. They're gonna get married. Why? Because they want to get out of the barracks. They want to go be adults.
The
And
tail oldest
yeah, it's never gonna change. I don't foresee it changing ever. Touch that piece real
no.
quick. For those young service members that are getting into marriage, right? That's gonna put some adversity on their first their career, and then two, their, as a man or woman, whatever it is. We can only speak on men, right? Touch that piece, and what are they looking into here as a newlywed for the first 5 years?
Um, coming into the Army as a single person, I only had to worry about me, right? I was able to dig deep, I was able to accomplish missions, do whatever the Army asked of me, and I didn't have anything, preoccupying my mind. Once decide to enter in that relationship, it's no longer just you. You have responsibilities. You have a second voice in your professional matters that should be taken into accounted for. If you throw kids into the mix, if it's a mixed family, right? They don't necessarily sign up for the Army. They sign up for you. And while that aspect of you is still important, you have to understand that they're not necessarily going to be on board with all the things that the Army's having you do. And it really comes down to communication and understanding. I was really fortunate enough that my father-in-law spent 10 years in the Army. And he was very, very vocal with my wife of this is what he does. You need to understand that it's not always going to be easy, but you enter into a contract, a social contract with that individual, and the Army is part of what they do. So leveraging what's best for you, what's best for them, and what's best for the Army really has led to success in my career. Really, because without my family, I don't. That's a giant part of me. So you got to have that balance to make sure they're taken care of, but you're also taking care of them.
That's good. That's good. Work-life balance is what it sounds like you're trying to say. That's at least that's how I'm interpreting it.
Yep.
Different services have different work-life balances. I'll tell you what Marine Corps is. Marine Corps, the work-life balance is very difficult. I will give you that. So I try to get it in when I can, and most of the time it's not at a decent time or not at an appropriate time. It's just the time that I got. To
Yep.
tell me, how do you work on that work-life balance individually? I know family is a big catalyst for that, but because you had the father-in-law that was in her ear, but as a married couple for those young service members, how do you work on that work-life balance? How do you make that better for you?
So it's not necessarily a work-life balance because let's be honest, the military service isn't going to come second.
That's true.
So it's not necessarily about being present all the time. In my opinion, it's about being present when it matters. And when it matters, be present. And it's something that I really had a struggle with becoming a first sergeant. I had a very large company in Germany, and kids, when I would try to make it to my son's basketball game or my youngest's soccer game, I found myself just on the phone, right? Working,
Mm,
checking emails, making phone calls. And even though I was physically present at that event, I wasn't mentally present. So I wasn't there, right? And I might as well have just been at the office. So when you do take the time to be at those events for your families, be present. Put the phone down. I've yet to meet a senior leader that is going to come down on somebody for saying, "Hey, sorry I couldn't answer. I was at my kid's band rehearsal or band concert," right? Just having the foresight to be present in those moments, but also for soldiers forecasting those events so that leaders such as myself can mitigate calendars, events, missions, whatever, we can mitigate those to allow you time to be there and be present and enjoy that family and give back to them.
that's good. That's good advice. It goes both ways, right? You got to communicate not only in your relationship, but to the chain of command so they know that, hey, this is what's going on. So that's good advice for those young service members that get into marriage. Appreciate that, Sergeant Major. Let's get right into it. You talk about, we got to keep on track because your time's precious, our time's precious. We don't get paid for this. It's just a chatting
It's
up,
just
networking
easy.
kind of thing. So
Right.
adversity resilience. Service members nowadays, currently in this era, this culture, right? It's nice because it's weird. I heard a statistic, at least for the Marine Corps. I don't know if it's for the Army, but in the Marine Corps, you have 4 generations working under one roof. Is that kind of similar to you guys as well?
Yeah. So I didn't learn about generational isms in the Army until I was at the Sergeant Major's Academy and I was doing my master's degree in leadership
Okay.
studies, and a lot of that covered generational leading and kind of, like, yeah, you might have that private that joins late in the service, um, or somebody that took a, they saw an avenue to, serve the nation and they jumped in it midlife. But when you look at it, you've got, depending on the level of rank, you've got some Gen X. There might be even a boomer hanging out there. We'll see. Then you've got the millennial crowd, the Gen Z, and then the Gen Alpha. They're right on the cusp of service. So they're coming into that time frame where different thought processes of how things should be handled and how things should be
Yeah.
executed. And how you navigate those as a leader is super important. Not everyone deals or reacts with adversity, or even how to conduct mental resiliency, um, the same across those generations. Now, you look at the older generation, they're much more harsh, much more direct. The younger generations, and it seems cliche because we've heard it. I don't know about the Marine Corps, but the Army is always, give them the why, show them the why of what you're doing. And that kind of helps them fortify that in their head of what's their purpose, what's the purpose of the task, and why it should be done in X manner. Right. And that's not to say that every situation deserves a long thought out, epily of thoughts of why you need to return fire and kill the enemy. But if you're doing something that leads up to an event, a training exercise, or a recovery task of where you're coming back from the field training environment, of why you don't get to just drop your stuff in the motor pool and run to the house, right? Explaining why that's all important to them definitely gives them the capacity, one, to understand why it's important and why it needs to be done, but it gives them a better picture of what their day looks like or night looks like or weekend looks like coming out of that field exercise, and they can better mentally prepare for how to re-engage, going back after hours and coming back and going home.
Yeah. Tell me, touch on that piece one more time, a little bit more. So we agree that there's some generational gaps in between in the workplace for as far as senior leaders, senior officers, platoon commanders, platoon sergeants, whatever have you, whatever the billet they have. There are some generational gaps. Well, does your organization, obviously, because you're army, you're in the army, how does your organization bridge the gap in
It really comes down to leaders at my level. I'm in the Army, it's the brigade, battalion level, company level leadership, because they're the ones interacting across the generational divide on a daily basis, really. And it's been a struggle, especially with the new generation. And I tweeted it out maybe last week, week before. The older generations like to talk about the new soldiers. The new soldiers are less, or they're not as strong, or they're not as, resilient and technically proficient. Pick your poison, right? And I explained to the soldiers that were talking to, or the NCOs that were talking to me, and it was like, I was that soldier. I was that new soldier in 2001, right? 9/11 happened, GWOT kicked off, and we weren't prepared, right? We weren't able to do what the previous generations had done. So I told those NCOs, like, I was those new people. You were the new soldiers when I was your rank. And now the new soldiers are today are what you're seeing. And I explained to him that it really comes down to how the leader engages, trains, and prepares those individuals. Was I ready to go invade Iraq at the age of 20? Absolutely not. I could barely balance a checkbook, which also shows just how old I am because I know what a checkbook is. But uh my leaders engaged, they stayed relevant to the situation at hand, and they saw the shortcomings in me and attacked those deficiencies to bring me up on the level that we needed to execute the missions with. And I think that's the same thing that we have to do today. And it's incumbent on the leader to engage because that's what you're supposed to do, right? And it's not about coming down, being harsh. I don't have to curse and drop F bombs to get my point across. And For the subordinates, it's just being receptive and understand that we come from a place of wanting to do the best for you and do the best for the organization and do the best for the mission. It's not that we're hammering you because we're just a bunch of assholes. It's because we've seen what the other side of the ocean looks like, and we know that there's requirements and things that you're going to have to do as a person that are going to pull you out of your comfort zone. So better to be out of your comfort zone learning in the stateside training environment versus learning in combat, because if you're learning in combat in the heat of the moment, it's already too late.
Agreed. Agreed. I like that. It's good. It's good gouge. Leadership has to engage. It's up to us as senior leaders to bridge the gap from the chain of command, right? It's just good. Does your institutional core values help, or is that just kind of a mantra that nobody really cares about in the Army?
So we have the Army values. And I will tell you that private through, we'll go specialist me, didn't live the Army values, right? I wasn't doing anything wrong or, illegal or unethical. But the Army was a job to me. I look at it as if I went to go work at McDonald's. I'm sure McDonald's or Walmart has their values on the wall. It's probably not a sweet acronym like leadership in the Army like we have,
Yeah.
but I really look at, you have to build the individual to really exude those values long term. I mean, the Army leadership acronym has leadership, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Those should be inherent in a person, but where they come from, those might not be inherent in them.
Mm.
So you have to build that individual to instill those values long term.
That's good. Ours is just simple 3 words because we like crayons, so
Because
might as well just keep it simple.
I
Keep
wasn't
something
going to make a
stupid.
Marine joke, but
You're allowed to. You're good. I'm good. I'm all for it. I encourage Marine jokes. So the only thing we can remember is honor, courage, plan, which is just you know, courage, HEC,
hey,
right?
well,
So
that that so the two things about the Marine Corps that have always like stood out through my entire life was your three, and then the commercial of the Marine slaying the dragon with the sword. Like those are generational, and that as an Army person, lifelong Army person, that still, when I think of the Marine Corps, those are the two big things that stick out to me. So you guys are doing something right.
that's good. That's good. Yeah, I agree. It just gets me all hyped up when I see, especially his drill. I'm not gonna lie to you. At the very end, when he gets in the uniform, he just clock locks and drops it. You know what I mean? Like just straight moto. It's good. Yeah, I agree.
Oh
We
yeah,
keep it
you
simple,
guys are
stupid.
definitely winning the uniform game. Definitely winning the uniform game.
I agree. I like the Navy, the Chiefs, all the tans,
Yeah,
the
yeah, they
peanut
look
butter,
pretty
what do they
slick.
call them? They look pretty
Yeah,
slick. They're pretty slick.
but
Or the all whites.
your blues, and then the camis with the sleeves up season for you guys.
Guns out, guns out. That's the law.
All right,
So
100%.
that's good. Sergeant Major, I'll tell you what, you talk about adversity with the generational gap. You have all these deployments, this excessive stress of deployments, right? Whether it's kinetic, operational, whatever you want to put it, right? Whether it's dangerous, not dangerous, it doesn't matter. It's still stress. It still applies stress to you as an individual and to your family when being gone. Touch that stressed you out or provided adversity for you as an individual and your family, because not only were you single and then you became married, touch on that adversity and how you were resilient, because it seems like you have a good head on your shoulders. It might be because of your support system, it might be because of what you did outside of the support system. Touch on that piece so that they can have some good tools in their toolbox as young service members, because right now they do the 4 to 5 to 6 years and then they get out and then they struggle. They just struggle.
I think it was an old saying that I think I came up with it. I might have stolen it from somebody, right? But I don't think going to war or deployment makes you a better soldier. But the things that you learn on deployment through the adversity and the stress can really round you out as a better person when you come home. You just have to be aware of how those things impact you. Coming off the first deployment, I didn't know it, and I had untreated PTSD for part of a decade. And I thought I did what every soldier does, right? Young, dumb kid, come back. I got money in my pocket. I'm going to go party with my boys, and I'm just going to drink. And I didn't realize that my partying and my drinking was self medicating. I didn't understand that.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I deployed when I was married that I came home, some problems with my oldest was 6 months when I left, and I came back and he was 18 months. I went from a baby to a little human running around. And my wife was like, "Hey man, like you need to get your shit together." I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, "I'm just drinking, you know." And she's like, "No, no, you need to get your shit together. Like, this is gonna affect us long term." Uh, so I did what any person would do. I called them and I was like, "Hey mom, like this is some of the stuff that's being said, conversations we're having." And my mom very point said, "We knew you were fucked up since 2004."
Very well.
I was like, "Okay, but did no one like think to tell me?" Right? Like, and she was just like, "No, it never crossed our minds to tell you that you needed to go get help." So leading into the deployments part of the conversation, there were tools available to me prior to deployment that never even crossed my mind to utilize. And I think the Army does a really good job about it now. Some organizations may focus on other things. For my subordinates, we're getting a lot of new people in prior right before deployment. And my questions usually start with introductions of names. I ask them if they've been settled, if their families are settled, their kids are settled, if they have wife or kids, husband, kids, wife and wife, husband, whatever, right? The person that is important to you, where are they at right now? And are you getting taken care of? And then I give them the information for our military family life counselors. Have they in process with the chaplain yet? um are there any problems? And they're like, they give you the talking to a sergeant major answer, no, everything's fine. And I'm like, Colorado Springs is expensive, are you sure things are fine? Like, is your family in school? Is all these second third order effect things that happen on deployment that you haven't thought of because you've never been? I'm going to ask these very pointed questions. Does your spouse have a power of attorney? Do you have a will? Are your kids enrolled in to receive health care while you're gone? Is there a special power of attorney that's needed because a general power of attorney won't do this or that? You need to go see legal. Those little ankle biter things that you don't really think of going out the door that seem to come up like month 3, 4, 5, or 6 of deployment. And now you're stressed out, your family is stressed out, which then in turn stresses you out more. And you're not able to focus on the mission. So really, though, just through my experience of so many repetitions downrange, it's not a sergeant major to a subordinate role. It's more of a Andy as a human knows you are going to go through this eventually. So let me just be a good human and give you the information up front instead of doing discovery learning and being a serious emotional event for you and your family while you're 8,000 miles away.
I heard that when I was in San Diego as a drill instructor. Just when company first aren't retired now, Randall Parks. He goes, just be a good dude. I don't care about anything else. Just be a good dude. You know what I mean? The best
So
tool for of advice.
we started calling it BroCon, right? It's a relationship of like just being a bro, right? Like just taking care of people, even because not even because you're in the Army or in the Marine Corps as a leader, just because you're a decent human being and you don't want people to go through the problems that you went through because no one was able to either understand or even knew, those problems existed or the opportunities to help fix them out front.
That's good. That's good, Gouge. Look, I got to ask you, service members, young or old, some the older generations, it kind of just suffer in silence, and it kind of trickles down to senior leaders that have been deployed before, kind of just suffer in silence. But the young generation, this generation that gets out after 4 years, even the ones that are getting out now, they lose purpose, they lose drive, and then they suffer up here, and they can't transition properly. They can't, and some of the stuff is onus, right? That you got to take ownership of what you're doing, find purpose. We get it. Easier said than done. But those ones that are stronger than with, we're not mental health providers, right? We just talk about experience and how what things helped us and might help others. Mental health is a big deal, right? Whether it's
Very much so.
being advocated for, or it's talked too much about, or suicide has been on the front too much. It's normalized, whatever the opinion is, it's happening, right? I say that we have to give them tools for the toolbox. Give somebody that's on the cusp or that taking that 30-inch step in the wrong direction, give them a tool for the toolbox now so that they can use that and come back to us.
So we'll go with, and I think I've said it before online, suicide, mental health problems, they affect more than you as the individual, right? The impacts of undiagnosed or untreated mental health problems, right? Anything from anger management to suicide ideations, that affects more than you. If you're single, You've got parents, you've got brothers and sisters. Hell, maybe you have a dog. That dog will be sad as hell, right? If you are not taking care of yourself. For the married individuals that maybe have children, they all depend on you and look at you as the light of their world. You should be the person that is wanting to set the example for everybody. And it's not easy. I say that only because I went and got help and I try to normalize behavioral health visits and treatments within my organization of, hey, you look down. Is everything okay? No, yeah, yeah. I'm like, no, no. Is it really okay? Like, are you sure you're okay? Example that happened like 4 hours ago. I was in the headquarters building and a soldier that typically has really great hair. He has phenomenal hair and he takes pride in his hair. He now has a shaved head. And like it kind of threw me back. And I was like, hey man, are you okay? He's like, why? I was like, you shaved your head. And he's like, well, yeah. I'm like, but your hair was great. Like, is everything literally okay with you? Like,
Yeah.
um, and he confided that he had been going through some stuff. The hair wasn't a result of it. Um, I just taking like a involved approach of being like, no, man, like I know this is a thing that was important to you and now it's different. Like, what's going on? And just through conversation with that individual, like I know that his wife is very important to him, and he's trying to take care of their family stuff prior to deployment. And previous interaction with that same individual, I understand that he was going through some stuff, and I in the same spiel of like, hey, your wife and kids depend on you in more ways than you ever could think of. So if something's not wrong, let's go get some help. Let's talk to somebody. And the stigma is still very much there with I would say, the elder millennial population, the cusp of millennial to Gen X. Stigma's still very much there. The soldiers, they're a lot better about, I will say soldiers. The younger generations are much better about, I think I need to go talk to somebody. There's still that we'll do the suffer in silence. And I typically find out about it for good or worse. I'll find out that, they had a significant event in their life, a parent passing or a divorce. And I just start out to like, hey, maybe you should go talk to somebody. Like maybe, we can have a conversation like dude to dude or dude to dudette, but I'm not a licensed mental health professional. So maybe just having that open-ended conversation to get things off your chest, that can be the entry point for actually understanding what's going on and you're figuring out how to get not necessarily right, but just get better.
Yeah.
Sometimes, this stuff's never going to go away. And that's okay. But learning the tools and tricks to mitigate or preempt whatever the problems may be or the thoughts that might be, that's how we get you on track. And then we can, correlate that over with VA care. If you exit the service, you can roll on to VA and get that to continue to see the cycle of mental health.
That's good. So you had two things there. You said your decision is more than just you. Absolutely, I agree. And just from my experience with my buddy, Brett Shanahan, January 21, 2 years ago, or a year ago, exactly, a year and a half ago, he made a choice. And unfortunately, now I see his wife, his three kids. I see them, and it definitely hurts. And it's like a mixed emotion type of thing. It's like he talked to somebody right before it happened, one of our good buddies, and he said, "It's fixable, man. Come over, just come over." In his eyes, it wasn't.
And
It's
you
unfortunately.
talk about the decision, right? And we talked about support structures earlier. When I was a first sergeant in Germany, I had a soldier that got very bad news for about a compassionate reassignment, taking care of his parents, and gave him the bad news. Was like, hey, if you need anything, like I'll let it soak in a little bit, let it digest a little bit. And it was about 2300. One of his NCOs in the barracks called and said, hey, he says he's suicidal. And my initial thought was, he's just drunk. He's drinking his feelings. He's fine. Just put him to bed. And I hung up the phone. And my wife looked at me and said, but what if he's not? And I was just kind of like, well, what do you mean? And she goes, they chose to call you instead of just handling it themselves. Like they made the deliberate thought to, we need to call first sergeant. We need to call him and let him know. And they confided in you as a person that this situation was going on. So what if he's not okay and you don't go handle this and something bad happens? And kind of stewed on it for about 30 seconds. I was like, I guess I know where I'm going, right? And that is And that has been my wife has been my quality check on my leading abilities because you run through some things so many times as an individual, as a leader, that some things just become mundane. Like he's fine, it's fine, whatever. And she really balances out the fact that what if it's not? And you don't want to you don't want to be the person that's the last phone call. You don't want to
Yeah.
be the person that could have intervened but just brushed it off. And I think that's where it's incumbent on our junior leaders to understand when they're sold their peers, their new subordinates or whatever, make comments to take them seriously. And you don't have to be overbearing. You don't have to be like just, the old take your bootlaces and we're going to put you in a closet so you don't hurt yourself a mentality. But reaching out and making a deliberate approach to checking on them because coming at someone from a positional place of power doesn't hit the same as I am a person that gives a shit. And it's not because you're my subordinate, it's because you're a human that I'm going to check in on you and go a little bit further. That you don't want to have to, be the what if case versus I did it just because case.
Yeah, that's good. Tell you what, Sergeant Major, you have some good gouge. You have a lot of good experience. You got a lot of tools in your toolbox. For some reason, you look younger than me, and you've been in a whole decade longer, right? So I'll tell you. Let me ask you, what you got? Any save rounds for those service members listening all across the world, the globe? The floor is yours. Where can they reach you at if they want to know more about you? And the floor is yours for
So,
any save rounds.
I'm on Twitter or X, whatever we want to call it this week. MedPro Center of Excellence is my handle. I started the account as a sergeant first class 7 with the hopes to provide some personal insight into senior NCOs because there's a lot of misnomers about, hey, senior NCOs are just assholes. They hate their families and they stay at work late and I just wanted to provide a little bit of personal insight that not all of us are like that, right? And it kind of developed into a coach train mentor account. So if there's any questions, any, thoughts on how to go about day to day or how to access behavioral health or issues accessing behavioral health, they can always just give me a DM and I am more than happy if they're not at my installation, put them in the right circles or direct lines um, to better facilitate mental health. Sometimes they just need an ear. Um, that isn't in their circle, right? Hey, I just want to bounce this off you. What's your thoughts? 100%. I do that probably 3, 4 times a day with people. And the other tool would be just be okay with breaking the cycle of suffering in silence.
Mm.
The Army is a machine, the DoD is a machine. It will roll with or without you, but it might roll a bit easier if you're in it and you can be in it if you get help. There's tools. Army One Source for us Army folks, they do counseling. You have your military family life counselors, a MIFLIC, which is off the books counseling. You have your chaplain. I understand that some chaplains, aren't everyone's pot of tea, but they are an avenue, an indirect avenue to get behavioral health facilitated so that you can take care of yourself. Suffering in silence does no one any good. Doesn't do the leaders any good. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do the organization any good. Um, so just use the tools that are available to you. And if there's a hurdle in achieving behavioral health support, I ask that don't just stop there and suffer in silence again, right? Find a different way. Use multiple tools, multiple avenues. I went through probably 2 counselors before I found Dr. Scott Stange, who was my PTSD counselor previous duty station, and he changed my life, right? Absolutely changed my life. And it went from my wife said, I got to do this. So I'm just trying to keep her happy to really getting to the root of problems. And I can't thank Dr. Stange enough, and he'll probably never see this, but he was a change in my life for the individuals that have, well, everyone should have a superior NCO or officer. For that crowd, let your people go. It's okay. Like seriously, let your people go get right. Just because you weren't afforded the tools or didn't use the tools or whatever, shame on you if you're making it more difficult for your people to receive the help, right? If they had a broken arm, you would tell them to go to medical, right? And you would tell them to go see the doctor. Same thing applies, right? Even if it's multiple short-term trips, let them go. Let them go. Just use the
That's good.
tools that you need because it'll be all right. I promise you, The hour they're gone for that appointment might really suck, right? It might just be a horrible hour, but it'll be fine. And you'll be better off in the long run as an organization and as a person and as a leader when you let your subordinates go get mental health.
That's good. I'll tell you what, you talk about MedPros, your Twitter handle and your excuse me, your X handle. I don't know, I wouldn't say back and forth. I like the conversations you have with individuals. Like, I think you're wrong. Here's why. You get a lot of feedback like that. You get a lot of people that are hating and drinking that Gatorade, so to speak. What's going on there? Why do you enjoy that? And proving them wrong.
It's not that I enjoy, right? But if
Just a little
you
bit.
are, so we talk about a little bit, right? I learned something from the old chief of staff or the joint chiefs of staff, General Dempsey, talked about a digital echo chamber, right? You get in your little algorithm, you get in the people just cheering you on for all whatever you put online. And I think that correlates a lot to a senior NCO in the Army's position is supposed to be the common sense fact checker, if you will, right? So it's not that I dislike someone or what they're saying, but more often to not, when you speak in absolutes, you're probably missing a lot of the nuance that makes
Mm,
something accurate. And I think it's important for the nuance to be acknowledged because if you can't have intellectual honesty, then what are you even trying to do when you're speaking to masses? Nothing is
mm,
ever 100%. Nothing is ever 100%, whether it's metrics, one side of a story is never 100% true, right? Those nuances are where you have the conversations. And I feel like you can find a lot of common ground in those nuances because, right now things are very divided, and especially online, people want to stick their flags in whatever corner they're in, right? And the nuances, the middle ground where a lot of us we can acknowledge that not everything is 100%. And if you're adamant that this is that way, then you're probably missing something important because it's not always that way. And it's important to acknowledge that. And it just gives a little bit of the hindsight 2020 of, well, it's not always like that. Right. Okay,
yeah.
cool. If you can come off of that ledge of it's not always 100% that way, then there's room for conversation and common ground. And that's the same way with, you deal with soldiers or superiors, officers, and none of you guys please take this personally. Um, I have been in a lot of meetings in my career where I'm the only NCO and officers are just shooting out good ideas and it's just an echo chamber of yeah, we can do this and that and that. And as an NCO position of what about the nuance, right? What about the personal aspect? What about the eaches that require an additional 2 hours of time that you haven't considered in your planning for all of whatever you're planning? So my online persona is really an extension of who I am as a person. But I would like to say that like no one should ever think that I get upset or personally offended by anything that's said because the beauty about social media is you can just turn it off. You can just turn it off and go outside and see a beautiful sky in a beautiful country and deal with some great people instead of dealing with individuals that say a lot of visceral things behind a keyboard because they can, and no one, the old people say a lot of things online because they forgot what it's like to get punched in the face. I mean, like that's
Uh,
like so if you with that understanding of they're just saying this because they're unabated and there's nothing that's going to happen to them. Just turn it off for a while, go outside, go for a walk, enjoy the freedoms that America gives you. And I think people would be a lot better off and a lot less combative if they took a little bit more time off
I
online.
did like the one where that one guy was definitely gaslighting you about your service and you're not even in the service. I don't even know why you're here talking about service. That was amazing. I thought that was amazing.
Those are some of my favorites just because, if you spent 30 seconds typing out some response like that, you could have spent 30 seconds perusing someone's timeline or their about page, whatever platform you're on and gaining a little bit of nuance of why they are saying what they say. Instead, you just fired from the hip and you know what? I'm just going to have some fun with it. And
I think that was like
it's
a
a great
good 3 day set of going back and forth about your service. I thought it was the best gaslighting ever
and
from you anyways.
all all of those interactions, like, I think I really spend maybe 30 minutes a day on that site. Like, it's a real quick, like, let me see what's going on, and I'm out within a minute. But those ones, it's just, I don't know if it's someone that just doesn't care or just has that complex of like, I can fire away from this keyboard and just be safe in my own house or whatever. But it's unfortunate that, I mean, I know they exist because they exist in the real world, right? Those type of individuals exist everywhere. But the Twitter X platform of itself could be, and it has been used for such a positive tool before, that I think a little bit of insight and nuance would leverage that platform even better, especially for the veteran community, right? There's different sides of the veteran community online, but it's sometimes there's topics that bring those sides together. And I think the more that we engage those type of topics, I think the better the veteran community would be as a whole. It may be
Agreed.
suicide and mental health issues wouldn't be so prevalent in the veteran community.
That's really good. That's good. I liked your last save round. It kind of went on to a different thing, but that's good. That's good, Sergeant Major. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your experience, your tools for the toolbox. I think anybody can agree. Everybody that's listening can agree to that as well. I'll tell you what. Um, if there's nothing else, I appreciate it. Hopefully, retirement is down the road here pretty soon for you. And
Whew.
we can make it
Uh,
happen.
it's down the road in about 3 or 4 years. I got my next PCS will be battalion command sergeant major position. And then we'll see what the Army has in store for me. But more importantly, like, let's see where my family's at. And try to get back to that balance that we were talking about earlier.
That's good, Sergeant Major. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Pit Talk, pulling the pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G and Sergeant Major, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts and on one social media platform, which is X. Any criticism is good criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, me and Sergeant Major, we out. Sergeant Major, I'll be in touch later, all right? Thank you.
Thanks for having me,
Bye-bye.
man.
No worries.
Later.
Thank you.
Stand by, contact. Ceasefire. Stand by, contact, contact. Ceasefire.
Pit Talk is a podcast featuring active service members who discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.